Hello again, the Outlands. I am once again Ian Raven, and this is Peering at the Defense. This week we'll begin working without a net, since that seemed to work okay last time. And I am joined by someone tonight that, unless you've never fenced in this kingdom, unless you've never attended a court in the last, I guess I'll call it 2 years, you know her. Our gracious and badass queen, Nerissa. Welcome, Your Majesty.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I am glad you could come. And I'm glad that we, have sorted out issues with mattress pigs.
Right.
That's an in-joke. None of you will get. So, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. I love the summer because I love that it's still light outside at 6 o'clock.
That is a great, great thing.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Big fan of the sunshine. That's why we moved here.
Yeah. I would like to live closer to everybody who I generally get to see, when we're not all locked in houses. But I do very much like where we live on top of a mountain. So
yeah,
it's a nice place.
For sure.
So I figured we could just, jump right in, and I'll ask my starting question, which is, what brought you into the SCA? What hooked you? What kept you coming back?
So, actually, when I was 16, so I grew up on the West Coast, in the southern part of the West Coast. So when I was 16, I had a friend that played SCA, and he was like, hey, come with me to a cool thing. And so I went to a couple events with my friend, but I really didn't play. And then, unfortunately, my friend passed away, and so I kind of lost interest. And then about 10 years ago, I was at work, and people came in wearing garb. And
good.
I was like, hey, what is everyone up to? And so they were like, oh, well, we're in the SCA, and today was our crown tournament and our Kingdom Arts and Science competition, and we're all in town for that. And I was like, cool, do you guys have a local group? And they were like, yeah. And so I kind of started asking, like, well, what kind of stuff do you guys do? And they said, you could do anything. You could do dancing, you could do sewing, you could do fighting. And I said, do you let women fight? And because that was, honestly, that was not a thing in Kaid in the 90s.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. There were no women fighting at the events I was at. So maybe it was just the events I was at, but there were no women fighting in the SCA in the 90s out in Kaid. So they were like, yeah, you can come fight. So I contacted the local group and went to a fighter practice and was like, yep, this is the thing for me.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I know when I joined in Aidenveld, probably, I don't know, there were 200 people on the field for weekly fighter practices, because Encanto Park is just enormous. But all of us who joined at the same time got that same lecture, which was, you don't know. It could be anybody. See that brutal person over there doing really great things that we talked about, last week? Yeah, she is really good, isn't she? And we're all like, so, for 30 years, I've been working under the assumption that anybody could be under the armor across from me, and should be. So it's interesting to note that that's also the 90s, smack January 1990 when I started.
Mm-hmm.
Aidenveld already had kind of an idea that was the thing to do.
Yeah, this was I'm trying to think. This was about 94.
Okay.
This was about 1994, and this was like San Diego area.
Huh.
Like I said, I only went to a couple things, but was kind of like, yeah, I could stand around and look pretty, but that's kind of boring.
But you had enough people to fight, who would fight you, that you got to stick around.
Yeah. So once, like you said, about 10 years ago is when I really became interested. And the barony I started in was in a college town. So it was actually a really bad time of year to start because all of the students were getting ready to leave.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So I went to a couple practices that had quite a huge number of people, but then school was out for the year. And then there was just really like a small core group that was kind of there. But so Penzic was my third event.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that was some big exposure.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a couple of people for whom that was their first event and they're still around, and a couple of people for whom that was their first event and we've never seen them again.
Yeah, so the event that they came to, it was Memorial Day weekend. So I kind of like got hooked sort of in June and practiced a lot in June, and then I authorized because I was going to go to Penzic the 4th of July weekend.
Okay.
And then I went to Penzic 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So we like to be a little crazy.
Well,
Clearly.
but how was that? How did your first Penzic go?
Well, a week before I went, I had an accident at work and I smashed my hand. And so I had a hairline fracture in my left hand at the knuckle. And so
was a good way to start.
Well, and so honestly, like I joined the SCA when my kid was 3. Actually, he had just turned 4. And so Penzic was going to be my very first mommy vacation away from my kid at 3 years old. And so when that happened at work, I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I have like my first mommy vacation planned ever. And now I have a hairline fracture in my hand. And so I kind of just decided to go with it. And I was like, whatever, I'm going to go do this thing that I really want to do. And I was too intimidated to fight at Penzic. So I actually didn't fight at my first Penzic.
No.
A lot. Yeah, so like I said, my barony was a very small, so it wasn't small. It was big during the school year, like I said. So during Penzic, it was a smaller group of people. And
That's fair.
I was very shy, and I just didn't have enough nerve to walk down to the list by myself and sign in, and I wasn't quite sure how that worked. And so, but like I said, I didn't want to give it up because it was my first mom vacation ever.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm just going to go and do this thing. I don't even know what I'm doing, whatever. And so I went to the ANS tent and I watched a lot of the battles. And like I said, I just got to have a mommy camping thing. So it was kind of cool.
It's almost a little bit more relaxing than going and fighting for 2 weeks straight.
Yeah. And I wasn't even able to go. I think I was able to go for the second full week, most of the second full week. But yeah, it was the first time I'd ever been away from my kid ever.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it was kind of a big deal for me. So that was the time where the SCA I found the SCA at a time where I really needed a big rebirth in my adult life.
Okay.
I had a lot of personal stuff going on, and it was the perfect storm. Like, I love this. I love the people, I love fighting, and I need something completely new. And this was the completely new thing that really got me through. I mean, I don't know how personal we're getting, but I mean, I was going through a divorce and I had a 3-year-old.
Sure. That would be something to go through, right? I mean, that's...
Yeah. And so I was like, I love the SCA. This is so great. And I met a group of people that make me feel like I belong here, and these are my people. And so that's really, honestly, like, I found the SCA at the exact time I needed it. And it's been great ever since.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything nearly as dramatic because the College of Brimstone practiced on campus in between 3 beautifully flat-sided buildings. So the sound of rattan on shields was everywhere. And ASU is not a small campus. You could hear it for blocks in all directions because it was just echoing. And it was between my dorm and where my dining hall was. So my friend Carrie and I were like, what the heck? And it's, that's what drew us in. And the fact that there was, a juggling class going on and there were 3 people with, recorders and a couple of girls we've been trying to talk to for, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's almost been Prince of Eartha a couple of times. And, I'm still around. I have no idea what happened to the girls. But, we stuck around. We thought that it was pretty great.
That's awesome.
So I understand the finding it at the right time aspect. In fact, my wife Annis and I discovered it at roughly the same time and wrote each other the same letter that crossed in the mail. And she was at Rutgers in New Jersey, and I was at ASU, but it was the same exact letter. Oh, and you guys, you need to look this group up. They're great. And yeah, 30 years have gone by, and here we are.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the SCA was a big restart. Like I said, I was going through a divorce. I had a 3-year-old. I, met a ton of new friends. I met my husband, like my new husband, in the SCA. Like, that's how Adam and I met.
Yeah.
Was it SCA? So, it's the SCA has been really amazing for my life.
So you still find what brought you in the SCA after all this time?
I think the biggest thing that I find now is being a peer and being, a leader means that instead of going and seeking magic, I'm the person that's creating the magic for others.
Right.
And so it's fun in a very different way. Like, I love seeing people having fun, and I love knowing that, my contribution is what's making that happen.
Sure.
So I want people to get as much joy and love as I did when I was new out of the SCA. So I have a different joy, but it's, making those moments happen for other people the way they happened for me when I first joined.
That's cool. That's cool.
Does that answer your question?
It kind of does, because
Okay.
I mean, that's certainly something that I've wrestled with, because I never felt like I had gotten past that need to find the magic. But I also realized that I had been kind of placed in the position of being that person who creates that. So, I ran a practice. I was the person who was going to talk for an hour and a half to somebody if they asked me, so what do you do on the weekends?
Yeah.
But that was me giving back what I had found. And it also helps when you surround yourself with a bunch of other people who will do that, because you all kind of get to take turns being that person and getting to be the person finding that magic.
Yeah. I mean,
which
I
is
think
nice.
One of the most medieval moments I've ever had was we went to this little event out in the middle of nowhere, Illinois, out in the middle of a cornfield, I felt like. And we fought all day. It was so hot. It was, oh my gosh, it was so hot. But that night, there was a household that put together this giant feast, and they had all these pavilions set up, and they had cushions on the floor, and they had candles going and a fire pit going. And we lounged on pillows and ate a feast of beasts. And there was a guy there playing the harp. My husband teases me that I stalked the harp guy. We saw him at a bus stop one time on the way to a coronation. And I was like, it's the harp guy. And he was like, stop it, you're scaring the harp guy. But that was such a medieval moment where we had fought all day, and then we feasted at night, and we got to lounge and listen to harp music and eat and drink. And so those are the things that Adam and I like to do for other people. We like hosting people. We like creating those medieval moments for other people. So everyone jokes like, oh, you guys always have the best bar. You guys always have the best, you guys are the great host and hostesses. But that's us giving that magic back. Because it was my most medieval moment probably ever was eating meat and listening to harp music. It was so cool.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was so cool.
I mean, you guys have a lot to do with the common area at the Outlands encampment at Pennsic, which I've now had a chance to take advantage of. And you're right, that's a pretty amazing space, especially once the fact that it's lit by open flames kicks in, and 4 people show up and say, oh, you play an instrument also, what tunes do you know? And then it's 3 hours later and you realize you've just been listening to music for 3 hours, and music that hasn't been played in public in a large way for hundreds of years.
Yeah, it's like I said, for me, it's all about creating those magic moments because I want people to love that experience as much as I did. So
that's pretty great. I love that a lot. So, I mean, I would presume that ties into what it means to you to be a peer.
Yeah.
Because that's almost directly that.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that I think that sometimes people struggle with is like, I have to go out and prove that I belong here, and I have to go out and prove this. And it's like, no, you don't have to prove anything, really. You're the steward of this society at this point, and your job is to make sure that you replace yourself with 5 other yous.
Right.
That love society as much as you do. And so I think I got such good counsel in my vigil, and so I was the first woman made in the mid-realm. And so some people had said that was probably a possibility that I would be the first. And so I was absolutely terrified. And so I talked to a lot of people about, what does it mean to be a peer? I don't know what I'm doing. I can't be that, I don't know how to be that peer. I don't know how to be a peer. I know how to go and fight on the rapier field, and I know how to play bubbles with little kids, but I don't know how to be a peer. But really, when it came down to it, the counsel I got was, you're the steward of this society, and it's your job to make sure that the society flourishes and grows. And so that's where that counsel really hit home, that was my job now. I don't need to go prove myself. I don't have to prove myself to anybody, right? Like,
right.
It's about being that steward. So
it's the difference between having to go and say, I need to win this high profile bout because that says so much about me, and knowing that losing that high profile bout graciously in a way that no one remembers who won is more of the answer than you got to win. I'm like, I'm there to be the person who will take that shot when I know nobody else will.
Yeah.
Because it can be seen that way, and people look at that and go, oh, wait, that is how you're supposed to do that. I know they tell me at practice I'm supposed to take that shot. Well, there's a guy who's got some bling who clearly takes that shot, so maybe that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I'm not saying that you should never fence again, right? I'm saying that where I go and feel challenged and fulfilled is when I go to big wars. Like, I don't need to beat down all the new people in the kingdom. That's just dumb. But I certainly like to go to the big wars and fence in the 60-man tournaments, and see how I stack up, right? Like, that's where I can challenge myself and still do service, right? Because there's not fighting every day, and represent the Outlands on the field, represent the Outlands in the service aspect. So I think that the bigger wars give you a better opportunity to balance those two things.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, a day event, I think that's kind of hard. But I think at the longer wars, you're able to balance those two things a little bit better. Going out, throwing, swinging some sword, and then going and doing some service. So
I always like to say that one of the first out-of-kingdom peers who I realized I had met was now Duke Rorik from Ethelmark. He was Viscount at the time because they hadn't gone kingdom yet, but he's the sort of guy who's going to be in a ditch helping clear out the drainage with 5-6 other people. We're all going to get out. He's going to offer beers around, and then before he sits down, go, "Oh, right," and put on his cornet after having introduced himself to you as, "Hi, I'm Rurik."
Yeah.
And I met him again much later, only to have him tell me this very, to me, bizarre story of how he had been trying to get everybody out of his way during, whatever tournament it was. Happened to be Ethelmark Queens, which was one of the, highlights of my fencing career, because what a cool tournament. But to have somebody come and say, "I liked what you were doing and wanted to watch you," and realize that that's that same guy.
Yeah.
And it was like that kind of colored my idea of peerage. And then I forgot right around the time when people were like, "Oh, hey, would you like to be a peer?" I'm like, "No, I don't know how to do that."
Yeah.
So I've had to go back and take stock of exactly that. And it's like, all right, who are the people who I do know? And no, all right, I know how to do that.
Well, and I think the thing too is like being a peer, it doesn't mean having your bling on. It means somebody, I don't know. I had a conversation with somebody that was like, "Well, I need to be a peer because then people will listen to me." And I was like, so thing is, you kind of need to foster that. Like, if you're the person always doing, and you're the person always leading, and you're the person, they will naturally gravitate towards you and
Right.
have respect for you and see you in that pure like light, whether you have your coronet on, whether you have your collar on, whether you have your whatever on. And I think it's, that's another big part of learning to be a peer is the stuff is not what makes you the peer. It's,
right.
Obviously it's what's on the inside.
Right. And that's the difference is you should be somebody who people listen to begin with, and then they put bling on you that makes you obvious as a person who does this.
Yeah.
And I think that's certainly early on in my career, I didn't quite grasp that. I did, understand the concept of recognition of these things, but it took me a long time to get to that point where I could say, "Oh, right, this is somebody who's been doing this job for a long time and now has the title that goes with that job."
Yeah.
As opposed to do that job, you have to have that title first.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what you were saying. Because I know I went and I talked to peers because, years ago I was, "I don't know, I'm not sure. Is that something I want to do?" And the defense wasn't even a twinkle in anyone's eye yet.
Yeah.
But I went around and I spoke to the people who were rapier fighters I knew who had peerages, and they all 90% were pelicans because of what they'd done.
Yeah.
And I spoke to them and I got a certain sense of, yes, but that's not how it should have worked.
Yeah.
I spoke to somebody who was a knight because he had decided to go that path, and his answer for what do you feel you get out of a peerage is franchise, which is the one virtue that I still can't put into words myself, except I understand a little better now, certainly after taking counsel, certainly after having worn the collar for 2 years. You have that certain sense of franchise is that people listen to you, people will gravitate to you, like you were describing.
Yeah.
And he felt he needed to have the belt to achieve that, rather than describing it to me as I achieved this and therefore I have the belt.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's lots of different paths, but I think that when you just do the thing, I mean, I was absolutely Thunderstruck, I guess is I don't know. Like when they called me up in court, because they big boons out in the mid, and it was at Penzic and I couldn't even hear. And then someone said, they just called you into court. And I was like, no, they didn't. And I think
no, it's somebody else with a similar name. It's okay.
Yeah. I think it's that you just do the thing and eventually you get recognized for the thing that you do. But I think that seeing the shock on people's face when they are called is a really good indication of they're just doing their thing and they're going to do the thing whether they have the shiny bits. But those are the people that you really feel really good about when they're absolutely just shocked. And I think that's a good sign usually when someone's super shocked.
You mean perhaps like my wife, who was blown away by that. Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
That was very cool, and it was absolutely everything you just described. To the point where I am glad I was paying attention to what was going on, because she has no recollection after you said something about the order. Just no recollection of what happened. And I was like, yeah, all right, I can buy that.
And honestly, that's like been the funnest part about being queen is like, so I like making magic for people, but now I really get to do it in a completely different way.
Yes.
That I would never be able to do. I don't know. It's cool.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you guys have been, I think you've done a wonderful job with, back when we were having courts. I'm not the one to say I don't think you guys have been good at this. I've spent some time talking to Bela about that exact thing, because I spent time talking to Bela right before he gave me my scarf, talking about how this sort of stuff works, and he was very open and very forthcoming about what that sort of thing is, that magic that you get to do. And when we were done with our conversation, we went off to go do kingly things. I went off to go do marshal in charge stuff, and then court hits, and I'm like, I just spent an hour talking to this guy about this thing. I feel really bad. He's like, nope. I was glad to hear you talk to me for an hour about that, because it means that you are the person who I thought I was recognizing for that. I was like, okay, so you guys have done a very, very good job with that. I love that. Now, is there something that you miss from before you were somebody? Besides not having to have an entourage to go, to the restroom.
So I used to joke that my name was actually Nerissa the Nobody, and I could do and go anywhere I wanted because nobody knew me.
Well, we fixed that.
Well, yeah, in a different way. But it's interesting when I'm in a crowd and I have my collar on and someone's like, Mistress, and I'm like, who are they? Oh, me.
Oh, me.
Oh, my God. Because, I don't get to be anonymous anymore, right?
Correct.
So that's probably like one of the only things that I miss being able to do things anonymously.
Sure.
And yeah.
I know I've had a very distinctive bit of armor for, God, it's probably 18 years now. I've had this helmet, and it makes it very hard, even without bling, to be anonymous. So I know that feeling of, I never got to pretend to be Tarkesh from Artemisia because people knew I was not him. Yeah.
Well, even, so one of the great things about my household is we all wear black.
Yes,
and we all have black masks. And we all have, so it's very easy to be anonymous when you're fighting with your household of 10, 20 guys, gals, comrades, and you're all wearing black. So it's fun because you can be anonymous, and it's also funny when they're like, that guy in black, and you're like, which one?
Yeah. Well, what's really funny about your group is I've known of you guys for a long time. There are probably about half of the people who I know are tigers are identifiable. Yes, you all wear black, but I can tell that tiger from that tiger. Mm-hmm. And then there are the other half who I cannot identify from each other at all. All the same crazy wiry build, just basically the same armor, different red symbols on whatever visible, because you do that. And like Hatteras has a scorpion somewhere. So like Hatteras I know because I've met him in Atlantia, but there's a whole bunch of people who all have that same setup who, yes, absolutely anonymous. I can identify you. I can identify Adam. I mean, if you can't identify Torataka, I don't know what you've been paying attention to, because honestly, none of the tigers even quite move like he does.
Right.
But yeah, there's that element of anonymity for, I would say, for me, about half of you.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny. So I'm trying to think what happened to my armor. I went to Penzik, and I think my armor got rained on, and I was like, not today, Satan. I'm not putting on wet armor. So I just put on my chainmail shirt and threw a tunic on over it. And so I went out with a purple tunic and like all my black pants and my black boots and all my stuff. And someone was like, who is that Nerissa?
Are you new here?
Because I had a purple tunic on. People didn't know who I was. And so it was kind of fun. Again, sure. Like being anonymous was kind of fun for that day. But yeah, I think that's what it was. So I know I'm a fighter and I should be able to wear scuzzy clothes, but I can't do that. So I have a couple different sets of armor that I take, and it's usually all black. But yeah,
it does make it easy to coordinate.
It does. It does. But yeah, was it the last Penzik we were at? I think it must have been the last one we were at. And I threw that purple tunic on, and people had no idea who I was. It was hilarious. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, I think I ended up with, there was something up with my regular green and white.
Mm-hmm.
So I wore what was essentially my baronial herald version of the same armor from previous kingdom, previous barony. So no one knew who the hell I was. It was my second rapier camp here, and people had started to know me a little bit, but I was insufficiently covered in ermines. So people were like, who's this guy? He looks familiar, but I don't know. And I introduced myself to 6, 7 people in a row who, with my helmet off and could see my face, were like, yes, all right, no, I know who you are. I'm like, yeah, I know, but you didn't seem to, so I figured I'd introduce myself again.
And honestly, that's one of the really fun things about fighting heavy. So I like to fight heavy at war, and not tournaments or anything like that, but just melee. And sure. It's super fun because when people realize that it's me, they're like, oh my God, what are you doing out here? And it's fun to go out and, again, be anonymous. Like I really enjoy spearing. I have a lot of fun with it. And it's that opportunity to just go be anonymous. So.
Now, one thing that I think I've noticed about this kingdom, as opposed to where I spent most of my time in the East, you have people who will let you fight, though, right? Because I know that was the complaint of all the princesses and queens that I worked with was, here's the queen's unit, and there's 6 people that are going to be here instead of here, because no, you don't get to hit my queen. Meanwhile, the queen's going, can I hit someone?
Yeah, no, it's So on the heavy field, they were definitely more protected. But I mean, I was like, no, I'm here to fight. And if I didn't have the shiny hat, I'd be, over here spearing. So I don't want a group of people around me to the point that I can't fight. Like, I'm here to fight. And, if it's going to be too distracting or it's going to pull people off the field from having fun, then I'm not going to do it while I'm queen. But they put a really good group of people together, and they let me fight heavy. It was great. I have a couple of really protective people in that heavy fighting unit. So they certainly did say, if a big, charge is coming, we're going to pull you out of the way.
Sure.
But they were very good about letting me actually fight. And rapier wise, we got rained out before I got to take the rapier field at Estrella. So, but when we did war practice, it was, I'm going to be fighting.
Right.
And, but again, like, my husband's my champion and he's not going to let anybody hit me. And it's not even let anybody, like, he's just going to go murder people. And
right.
I probably, and that's kind of how we roll anyways. Like, he murders everybody. I just distract him.
Sure. I've been that guy. I will hang out with the person who is 6 feet taller than me and has more reach just so that I can go, whoa, and they can kill people.
Yeah. So, no, the hardest thing I think was having to be escorted everywhere. I think was probably not so much. It wasn't hard on the fighting field because, my champions and stuff, they all know me. They all know, what I can do, and they know what's going to make me happy, and sitting in the back's what's not going to make me happy.
Right.
But the being escorted to everything has probably been the hardest thing. Yeah. I'm like, no, I can handle myself. I'm a marshal here. And they're like, no, you're a queen. I'm like, okay. Well.
Yeah. And you have regalia and furniture and people, and that relatively few quiet moments, I presume.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but the smile you're throwing there does say that you have enjoyed your time wearing that crown.
It's been, I think that, and I could be wrong, but it's been absolutely amazing to be queen and to be a master of defense, because I feel like in a lot of ways I've been able to highlight the rapier community in a little bit different way.
Okay.
I was certainly advocated very hard for the scenarios at Estrella for rapier.
Sure.
And, tried to make sure that actually, I will not take credit for this one. It was actually Bela that said, with the Outlands prize tourney, we should have a rapier component. So that was actually Bela.
Oh, that's cool.
But I was like, that would be great. That would be so amazing. So I think that I don't know. I think being a master of defense and being a queen, at least I hope, has been good for the community. At the very minimum, raising awareness. Like, one of the favorite things that I hear from kids is, you're a fighter and a girl and a queen?
Yeah.
And that's my favorite thing ever, is when the kids are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, you can do anything.
Yeah.
You can literally do anything. You can be a fighter, you can be a queen, you can be a whatever. You can be a cookie dealer, because, I'm pretty sure that's why the kids like to hang around. But I think that it's been really fun. I know there's a lot of queens that come out and support rapier, but it's really been special for me that as a white scarf and a queen, like, my people are my people.
Right.
And now they're my people.
Yes.
That's very cool. Making a white scarf has been one of the coolest things I've done as queen. Because I'm like, not only am I making a white scarf, one of the Queen's people, I'm making a brother or sister or comrade for later, right?
Correct.
So that's a really kind of amazing thing that's been part of, being Queen. It's, I don't know.
It's something I was certainly jealous of the scarf kingdoms when I lived in an ogre kingdom, because we don't have that same direct, connection to the queen that other kingdoms had. And certainly I looked at the white scarf as something I wanted from the point where I figured out what it really was. And it's kind of a great connection that you just, you don't have otherwise. And I can only imagine what it's like from, from that other side, because you already have that connection. And you get to be the person making that magic happen for somebody and offer them that connection.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And like you said, so I started in the Mid-Realm, and they're not part of the White Scarf Treaty.
Correct.
And, Adam's an Outland's White Scarf. And so he had always, regaled me with stories about White Scarves and, their love for the Queen and their connection to the Queen and the Queen's people. And, the White Scarf's pretty highly coveted to non-White Scarf kingdom. I mean, obviously in White Scarf kingdoms, but it is. It's a highly coveted award, and I was absolutely honored when Onstis offered me a white scarf. So it's very cool, and I'm surprised that's not something that I thought was going to be like have such a huge impact, but that's been the thing that's been like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I love being able to be like, I'm offering you admittance into my order.
Right.
It's, it's very cool. I don't know. It's a cool thing.
It is. No, it certainly is. And from, the standpoint of watching from, even as close as, I am one of your guards. So I get to at least hear what's going on in court. It is pretty great from that side also.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's just pretty cool. It's one of those pretty cool things.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would, besides anything that we've talked about already, anything that you would like someone to know about you besides your, your peerliness or your royalness? I haven't had to ask that yet for anybody. So
the royalness thing is temporary. In theory.
It is.
I think the biggest thing that I want people to know is that you can just do anything. If you want to go do art for the weekend, go do art for the weekend, and don't let people make you feel bad because you're not fencing this weekend, you're arting this weekend. I think just go and do things that make you happy. And I think that helps keep you from burning out. I think that helps make you well-rounded. I think you meet a lot of really cool people. And I don't know, I think it makes you a better member of the society if you're well-rounded. I'm not saying everyone has to go out and do that, but it certainly introduces you to a lot of people that you're never going to meet on the fencing field. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Actually, one of my Facebook memories was I worked the tally room at Kingdom ANS out. So Memorial Day weekend's a big weekend for the Mid-Realm. They do their big Kingdom ANS. They do Crown Tournament. There's some fencing. So like Kingdom ANS is Saturday and then Crown Tournament's Sunday.
Okay.
It's a humongous weekend. So Saturday during ANS, they do fencing. And then there's only Crown Tournament on Sunday. And so one of my memories for today was working the tally room, and I got to meet so many cool people that I never would have met if I'd spent the day on the fencing field. That's true. So I think that it's okay to be well-rounded, and it's okay to dabble. My husband calls me the hobby shark because if we need something, I'm like, I wonder if I could make that. Well, and then you kind of go down the rabbit hole, right? Like you start doing the research, you start, looking at what tools it's going to take. So it's fun to pursue other things, and it's okay to pursue other things, and it presents a lot of opportunity that you maybe wouldn't otherwise have if you're only ever at the fencing field.
Sure.
So I'm a dabbler. I like to dabble.
All right. It looks like we've got a little under 15 minutes left.
Okay.
I have a couple of lightweight questions that I'll lob at you. What's your favorite form to fight?
Sword and dagger.
Okay. What do you like about sword and dagger? What strikes you about that?
Okay, so what I like about sword and dagger is that your secondary weapon can also be used to kill people.
Sure, that's quite fair.
My sail has a little baby shield, but then I can actually stab people with my sword or with my dagger too.
Nice.
So I think it's a cool combo weapon, combo buckler and offensive as well. So I think that's why.
All right. Now, what's your favorite form to teach? Probably sword and dagger. I mean, I don't know, sort of. I would say sword and dagger. Sword and dagger. Okay. All right. I'm just glad nobody's asking me these questions because I'm like, well, I know what my favorite form is. I don't know if I'd be able to answer that second question.
I know. I was like, well, I actually am not a horrible buckler teacher, but I feel like I probably have a little more street cred on the sword and dagger because that's what people see me fight with all the time, right?
Sure.
Nobody ever sees me fight with buckler unless I'm in one of those crazy tournaments that like forces you to.
Right.
But
right.
My teacher made me learn buckler, right? My teacher made me learn all of the stuff.
Sure.
So just because people don't ever see me do it doesn't mean I don't, but I feel like I probably would have more street cred on sword and dagger.
Okay. I mean, certainly, I know that one of the first times that we had met and fenced was a day when I was saying, oh, I'm going buckler all day. And you were very confused because I didn't bring dagger against you. And you were like, where's your dagger? I'm like, I'm fighting buckler today. She's like, yeah, but dagger. I remember that very keenly. Another one of those tournaments I had no business being in because I had, I don't think I'd practiced in 2 years at that point. I mean, I'd played a little, but I hadn't a regular practice since we'd left the East. And then, Ansys's tournament, which was everything I wanted it to be as far as that, that kind of a cool thing that we don't do in a non-queen centric kingdom.
Yeah.
Having that entire tournament just be Princess Protector. I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
And then
very cool.
I've got somebody who, look, I set Gianni back on his heels. That was my victory for the day was I surprised Gianni. And he was like, well, not going to let you do that again. And then to have somebody who, what little I knew of you was, absolutely someone I respect, say, hey, why didn't you bring that form against me? Knowing it's my favorite form, but it wasn't what I was fighting that day. I was like, I don't know. So how often do you really do footwork drills?
How often now or how often when I was first learning?
It's a great question because I know lately for most people that answer has not been very high. But sure, what are you doing now versus when you were first learning?
So we have had the side benefit that my teenager has expressed interest in fighting.
Yes, you have.
So he has been doing he's been learning drills, and he's been occasionally doing, well, more than occasionally, he's been doing drills and practicing, and Adam's been working with him a lot, and we've been trying to spar with him once a week. But so I've been doing more than I had for the last couple of years. But when I was new, I lived, my house had this great hallway. So like the house went straight back, and then the rooms were off of the hallway. So it kind of dead ended at the end of the house.
Sure.
So I would start at the end of the house, and I had puppies. So puppies always wanted to play. So I would do advance and retreating drills with my puppies.
There you go. All right.
Because they're great at pouncing and then backing up and then pouncing and backing up. So that's how I did a lot of footwork drills when I first started. And then I put up a mirror at the end of the hallway so I could see like what I was doing in my footwork drills.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to have marks taped across the back wall so that I can have people gauge whether they're bouncing or have a focus.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly that was not something that my Don was going to let me get away without knowing. And it was, it turned into the core of everything that I am as a fencer. And I broke my ankle. And I was like, well, that sucks. But the footwork drills were something that my physical therapist heard me talking about and said, let me see some of those, and had me build not only what my regular footwork drills were into my therapy,
Mm-hmm.
but the thing that he had heard us talking about was this ridiculous thing that one of my household members likes to do. His bota secreta is a reverse sweeping lunge. So you end up in a lunge position, you drop straight down, and your rear leg sweeps around behind you.
Okay.
So you just kind of collapse on your forward leg. It's very terminal. It's very stupid. It's a beautiful thing to watch him do. It's less beautiful to watch me do. But what we were talking about was something that had very much to do with that sort of up and down and rehabbing an ankle.
Mm-hmm.
And from the other end of the room, this guy heard me say something and looked up and watched me do that sweep and drop. And all I hear is a physical therapist going, "What is that?" Like, should I never do that again? No, show me that. I want to use that. Yeah.
That's cool. So I went back to school to become a massage therapist. I was going to say last year, but the pandemic's like a whole year of our lives never happened.
Correct.
Before the pandemic, I was in school, and they were like, "You have the strongest grip. Like your forearm strength is insane." And they're like, "Are your arms sore? And I was like, "No, my arms aren't sore." They're like, "Are your wrists sore?" And I'm like, "No, my wrists aren't sore." And then they're like, "Well, what do you do to straighten?" And I was like, "Oh, my sword's 3 pounds." And they're like, "What?
You're what now?"
Yeah. And so I'm like, "Well, on the weekends I do this thing." And so, yeah, I try to keep my forearm strength and my wrist strength and my, bicep and shoulder and all. Yeah. So I have a 3-pound sword, and they really actually helped me with massage therapy.
Okay. We have a question from Facebook that you could probably have had shouted at you, apparently. Master Adam would like to know, did your therapist make you tie those bricks to your feet? I'm assuming there's a brick footwork joke there.
I think that's a question for you.
One of the things that we had to do was an array of cups around us. So, no, I didn't have to have bricks tied to me, but I did have to stand on one, because you had to basically lunge down, pick up a cup. lunge down, pick up the next cup, lunge down, pick up the next cup. And then eventually when he was getting mean to me, he would have me stand on something so I was higher up. But no, sadly, for Adam's benefit, I did not have bricks tied to my feet at any point. He did make me do the Bota Secreta a lot, which was a shame.
How do you recover from that?
Oh, you don't. It's
okay.
you drop straight down. You are held up by your forward leg and your offhand.
Okay.
So if you can stand back up from that position, just come straight up, then that's how you recover from that. Which means that at my practice, I was the only person who could do that for a couple months because I was doing this friggin' cup exercise. So yes, I could stand back up from it, but boy, I've never found a use for this in a real fight. Got to tell you.
Awesome.
All right, which brings us to almost time. I'm really, really glad to have gotten the chance to chat with you. Thank you for hanging out with us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the tech team for making this work so much better than last time. I'm super pleased with the people we have working behind the scenes. They make everything just work so smoothly. Thank you for the Outlands for coming and watching whatever this was. Do make sure that you stop in and watch next Tuesday at 6, June 1st, for I don't know who Finn has on the docket, but he will be doing his thing next Tuesday for appearing at the Chivalry. And until next time, keep your guards up and keep the pointy end in the other person.